am a retired police officer. I spent 37 years as a certified Texas police officer. I started my career in Odessa, Texas in 1980, and I worked in Odessa for 10 years. The last 8 years I was there, I was a detective. Mainly, I worked robbery. I was the robbery division of the Odessa Police Department for 8 years. When you say you're from Odessa, Texas, and you worked as a policeman, they go, yeah, okay, little town. Let me tell you, when I worked there, when he was a little boy, Odessa, Texas was the murder capital of the United States. If you have never worked or lived in a boom town, you have no idea what it was like. Boom town attracts money. Money attracts crime. The first 5 years I was there, we had 9 serial killers kill people in Odessa, Texas. 9 serial killers. If you don't know anything about it, living in a boom town, that ought to tell you something. The cops were all leaving. You know, we had a 220 person department there. When I left there, I was making $2,200 a month. And guys, we thought that was big bucks. Why would you stay for that when you can go into the oil field and make $5,000 a month? As a patrolman, where there were me and 2 other patrolmen in a city that had 200,000 people crammed into it. 3 policemen, and that's it. That's all that was on duty. I knew the penal code like the back of my hand because the penal code was the only thing I ever read that I cared about. I was called to do that job, and I was extremely good at it. Very, very good at it. Believe it or not, I cleared 80% of every case ever assigned to me, and that is phenomenal. In the 1980s, I worked homicide, assaults. I believe it was somewhere around 87 or 88. I was assigned a case of a little boy who was in the hospital, and he had been assaulted the night before. So I went to the hospital, and I met that little guy, and his name was Tiki Davis.
When you're a young kid and you get stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver, you really don't know how to process it. When you're telling your story, a lot of times you get questions, did you really get stabbed in the neck? Did these things really happen to you? And I never really could prove it, and I didn't really try to go out and seek approval of anybody because I know the experience that I went through. Hey, she gonna let us shoot some in. When I said when I go upstairs and get myself ready for bed, these are the exact same stairs. These right here are the actual floors. The linoleum floor when I'm face down in my own blood. When I'm face down in my own blood, in my own tears, I can smell the bleach, the Comet, the pine saw, the Ajax. This is what I'm talking about. And I go and I get myself ready for bed. And I'm laying in my twin bed. And I can see the silhouette. This is what government housing looked like. This is what it looks like 35 years later after I got stabbed in the neck. It hasn't got much better. It's crazy, and I thank them for opening up the door to let us do this. You know, this is the actual room that I got stabbed in the neck at. The actual room. It happened right in here. After I'm stabbed, this is where I walk. But as you can see, these stairs, they won't even put new stairs here for these people. The living room that didn't have any decorations, didn't have many ornaments. This is the actual back door that I slam and I go out of. Boom. I go out of this back door. Then I go next door where my brother is playing Super Mario Brothers and saving the princess. I go right here. This is the door that I bang on, and my brother answers the door. I say, don't save the princess, save me. And it's a guy named HL, worked for the Odessa American many, many years, and he was also a drunk. And he was sitting on the couch, and I remember going in there, blood all over me, and everybody else, my brother and everybody else, they're really screaming. The guy HL, he's drunk, and he says, put a Band-Aid on it. He didn't understand. And everybody in the projects thought that I had died. And believe it or not, in that community, in that environment, it was excitement. But people were getting murdered and killed all the time. And guess what? It was Louise's kid that got killed this time. And everybody know the lifestyle that my mom lived. And she was still a young woman. She was 27 years old. So my mom was hanging out in the flat. So when the word made it back to my mother that was in the flats, she said, Louise, your son just been killed. And then I remember my mom showing back up to the projects, and I'm on a gurney, I'm on the stretcher getting ready to get into this ambulance, right? And she runs up to the ambulance. Don't say, baby, are you all right? She says, don't tell him nothing. And that's what I did. I was loyal to my mom to the end. I didn't care if it cost me my life. So when Fred came to me, I didn't listen to Fred, I listened to my mom, and I didn't tell him nothing. I never was mad at her. It was no forgiveness. It was like a mother's love and a mother's son. It was just part of it. Things like that happen in the projects all the time. It was just our turn. And many, many years I lied about it because I was protecting my mother. But the truth is, my mom and another lady had robbed this man for their money, as I share on stage. And the man was upset when he discovered that his money was gone, and he came back to kill my mother and her friend.
But that was never given those facts, okay? They were worried that I would do something to them, which I wasn't interested in that at all. I was trying to solve the case for Tiki. And I told him, I said, Tiki, I will catch that son of a bitch that did that to you. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I worked my butt off on that case, as I did in any case, and I never could catch the guy. I think he went back to Mexico. He was a Mexican male. I found out what kind of car he drove. I had an attempt to locate out on that car. I just never could catch him. I helped Tiki's mother find another apartment. I think she called me and told me she was having trouble with Tiki. He wasn't doing good in school. So I went to their apartment and I took little Tiki out and we sat on the steps of their apartment, and I told him, I said, Tiki, I'm going to tell you what. I said, buddy, you do good in school. You bring your grades up. You quit acting up, causing problems for the teacher. And every time I get a good report, I'll come over here and pay you $10. And Tiki shaped up, and he stopped making trouble. He started making his grades, and every time his mama would call me, I'd go over there, take him out, and we'd sit on the steps outside, and I'd pay him his $10. Unfortunately, I left Odessa. I left the police department. I went to work for the state. One of the worst things about leaving was I felt so bad about leaving Tiki.
I never knew what happened to him. I never knew we was going to meet again until a few years ago. I'm watching a football game, same game he's watching, and I look at my phone, I get an instant email, and it was him. And shortly after that, a few months later, I came to Dallas and I met the guy for the first time in 40 years, and how he was the first motivation in my life by saving my life. For without him invested in me, I couldn't do what I do. So when I travel the world and I share my story, this is what I've grown through. It's really like unreal, because the connector, that the reason we know each other, the crime that was committed, my mother did it, and she's been dead for 20 years. And what really gave me a warm heart for him even more, when I met him, he said, Tiki, I did everything that I could to save your mother. I didn't know her very well, but I wanted to help her.
I wanted to show him there was a different side to life. There were better people, that it wasn't all what he was living in, prostitution and drugs and surrounded by crime and the whole gambit of things that come with living in the projects.
It ain't never been easy for me. Had a learning disability. Signed a statement when I was a young boy that changed my life. I had to fight for my name my whole life from 17 to 40. I went to school. I was able to get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, with a mom that never went past the 9th grade, a daddy that never went past the 9th grade. I take pride into where I am today. And right now, I'm 45 years old and I'm just starting to live, because that first 40 was just surviving. It's the difference. And I'm tired of surviving. I'm ready to live. So that's why I go around and share my story, because it's not about me. I've already made money. It's about helping somebody else release that mental paralysis. So I'm just so happy and glad that Fred agreed to give some credibility to my story. And more importantly, you know, he's like a father to me that was always there, like an earth angel. And I'm glad we could connect and have a relationship.
I had a career that most police officers would croak to have the career that I had in Odessa. And it was fun. It was absolutely fun. The hunt. You know what I mean? That's why I did so well at it. I enjoyed it so much, the hunt and catching somebody and making them pay for for what they did. Yes. I'll bet you 90% of every officer in this country, if you ask him, why did you become a policeman? He'll tell you the same thing, just like I did. I did it to help people. I was proud, guys, that I could stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, like Tiki Davis. I'm here to tell you that when Tiki tells his story about his perils and everything he had to go through, Tiki's telling the truth. Now, a lot of these motivational speakers that you see, they get up there and they blow smoke up people's butt about how great they can be and all that, and they're making millions. But when Tiki goes and speaks to these football teams or these schools or whatever, Tiki's telling the truth. That really happened to that man. He was a little fella, and like I said, I like to think maybe I gave him a little motivation to be a good human being. And there he is. It worked out. I stood up for Tiki Davis, and I stand up for him today. I'll stand up for you. I stand up for anybody, and I didn't ever care. I didn't care what color you were, what your sexual orientation was, what your religion was. None of that fazed me. I never let any of that ever come into any decision I ever made as a police officer. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that.